Hi, Gabby. So I was looking over the things that you wanted to learn, and it looks like one of them was how to make your own magazine or newspaper. So today we're gonna be making zines. And a zine is just a small newsletter or sort of a magazine that you make yourself, right? That you hand draw. They're really popular with people to give out for free. So I'm going to show you the steps of how to make a little book like this, and then I'm going to let you fill it out for your art project. So this is a zine that I made that is about being in quarantine. And the first thing you're going to need if you want to make a zine is some paper, some scissors, a pencil, an eraser, and a pen. So the first thing you're gonna do, I'm gonna try to prop up my phone while I do the folding so you can watch along with me. Excuse me. Is you're gonna take your paper, and there's a few different ways you could fold it, right? You could fold it long ways, which would be like hot dog style, or you could fold it short ways, which would be hamburger style. So for this one, we're going to fold it hamburger style. We're going to fold it so it looks short. So you're going to fold it. You have one folded in half piece of paper. Next, you are going to fold it hamburger style again, right? So instead of folding it long, like this, you're going to fold it short. So go ahead and fold it hamburger style one more time. And push it down. Sometimes if I have trouble pushing it down, I like to take a pen and just rub it along the edges. Really make sure it's nice and pushed down so it looks professional. And then you are going to fold it hamburger style one more time. So hot dog style would be this way, right? Hamburger style, gonna make it nice and short. And with this one, when you're folding it, you really want to push it down with a pen so that your edges are nice and crisp. Now you have what looks like a little magazine, right? But when you open it up, you only have 2 pages, and that's not perfect. So the next step is you are going to unfold it all the way. So you have a nice open piece of paper, and you're just going to check how many squares you have in it. So you should have 8 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. And then the next thing you're going to do is you are going to fold it just once. So you're going to fold it just once. You're going to fold it back along its hamburger lines, right? So you got 4 squares on each side. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut from here to here through both sides of the paper. So not all the way through the paper, just up to that line right there. And when you open it up now, it looks kind of like you've got a piece of paper with a mouth, right? Hello. Okay. So now we're ready for the next step. We're going to fold our paper in half, hot dog style. So we've got kind of a long piece of paper with 4 squares, and the open mouth is right at the top. And what you're going to do next, this part's a little tricky, is you are going to fold it like this so that it looks like a big plus sign, right? So you're going to take it this way, fold it like this. So you get a big plus sign. And, sorry, let me try to keep that in shot. Fold it. And you're just going to fold it all down. So now it's shaped like a nice book, right? You're going to want to go over your folds one more time with your pen so everything's nice and folded up. And now you've got a zine. So when you open it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, a cover, and a back page. And you can make your zine about whatever you want, right? You can make it about, let's see, I've seen zines that are about a band that someone loves. I've seen zines that are about playing a game, a board game, or a fantasy game that somebody really loves. It could be about a movie that you really love. It could be about someone famous that you think is super cool. It could be about what your day is like. So I'm gonna show you one more time mine. This one was a little bit about what it's like to be living in quarantine, because I think that's interesting, and it's not something that everybody experiences in their life. So it's sort of like what happens the time that my housemate told us we had to shelter in place, how we have to video chat with people, what it's like to go out in public, different new things that my housemates and I are trying, right? So I think that your zine can kind of be about anything, and sometimes that can be almost a little bit scary because there's a lot that it could be about, right? So next we're gonna kind of brainstorm and come up with a few ideas for what your zine could be about. So for the next part of the project, I want you to pull out a piece of paper and a pen, and we're just gonna write down some ideas that you come up with. So here are a few that I wrote down, and you can pause this video as much as you like while you write down an answer to each of these questions. And then afterwards you can kind of go back over and think, what looks like the most interesting to me? So question number 1, what's something that you're passionate about? So it could be, is something as vague as art, and you could write a zine about how you love to make art, right? It could be something that's really specific. It could be like, oh, I really love Claude Monet. I'm going to write the whole story of Monet in a zine. Question number 2, what would you like to tell people about your personal life? So for instance, in my quarantine zine, I told people a lot about my things that I missed in quarantine, and a lot about the things that I appreciated in the quarantine, and you get to see some of the people that I live with in the zine. So sort of telling people a little bit about what my life is like, right? The next one is, what do you love to do? So you could pick something that you feel passionate about. It could be helping other people. It could be making art. It could be going for long walks. And do you have any tips that you would want to share with people in your zine? So that could be a more informational kind of zine, right? Next question, what is something you could talk about for a long time? It could be something that is interesting to you, right? So something you can talk about for a long time that's interesting to you. And it doesn't even have to be something that you know that much about. You know, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm an expert on dogs. It could just be like, I love dogs. Here's a few different types of my favorite kinds of dogs, right? So just sharing something that you think is interesting that you would be willing to think about for a while. Another question is, what do you enjoy about quarantine? So, sometimes you get to learn new skills, right? I mean, you get to try new things because you have so much extra time. And that's something that I really enjoy about quarantine. So if I wanted to, I could make a whole magazine about, you know, during quarantine, I learned how to make my own yeast starter. During quarantine, I learned how to do some felting, and I got to practice sewing. And those are all things that I love that I got to do. So you can think about what's something that you love that you got to do. On the other hand, you could also do, what do you miss most during quarantine? So what's something that you normally get to enjoy, or that you do regularly that you can't do right now? And you can make a whole zine about that, right? You can make a zine like, oh, I usually like to go to the beach and get some ice cream and walk along the beach, and that's all the things I like to do. So that would be a fun way to think about things that you miss and to think about what would be something that you would enjoy doing in the future. And the last thing is just a kind of a question that's, what would you like to learn more about? So for instance, I think that, trying to think of a really good example here and I'm coming up blank. I think that cryptids are really interesting, right? So animals that people imagine. And when I was showing people my cryptid poster, which is just this little poster I have here, people were saying like, oh, that's a Wendigo, that's a Jersey Devil, that's the Mothman. And those are some of the ones that I don't know about, right? So I could do a zine about the Mothman. And I could look up the Mothman on Google. I could go to google.com and type in Mothman. And I could read some different things about the Mothman. And I could pick out what I think is most interesting, right? And I could put it on these pages that I have in the zine. And this could be my Mothman zine. So you can pick something that you think is interesting that you might want to learn more about. Maybe you don't know that much about it yet. And you can share that with people in your zine. So I want you to write something, a little something about each of these ideas. And then I want you to go back over them and try to figure out which one you think is the most interesting, which one you feel like doing a zine about, right? Because this is all about you. And then once you have your idea, you're gonna look at your piece of paper and you're gonna write out what you want to put on each of your pages, right? So you've got 6 pages inside of your zine. You've got 6 different mini things that you can fill with information. And it doesn't have to be just a picture, right? My zine is picture and also words, because that's the way I like it. If you don't like it, you can just do pictures. You could just do words. It's kind of up to you. So once you've figured out what you want on each of your pages, you'll be ready for the next step. So hopefully by now you have an idea for your zine. And the first thing you're going to want to do on a piece of paper is just scribble out what you want on each page. So they can be really scribbly drawings. They don't have to be anything fancy, and they can be really small. So if you look at this pictures, you'll notice that they're about the size of my finger, right? It's just a little scribbly drawing that I did. And this is just the comic that I'm working on. And this kind of drawing is called a thumbnail. So you want to take a page and you want to divide it into 6. And on each of your 6 pieces, you're going to plan out what information and what picture you want on each page. So maybe page 1 is just this shot, right? And you got to make room for all the text and you got to make room for the picture. And then once you've done that, and that might take you a little bit of time, right? You're going to be ready to start working on your actual zine. So for the first page, decide what you want to have on your page, and you're going to draw it out first in pencil. So you're going to do a really light sketch drawing, and you're going to draw out and write out what you want. So I went ahead with my example and I did a comic on Mothman. And the first page is a picture of the Mothman. And then it says the man, the moth, the legend, Mothman. And I kind of sketched this out, right? So after I've done all of my sketches, my next step is going to be to go over it with a nice pen. So I like to use a fine point pen just because it is a little bit skinnier and it can do a really small line. And because the book is kind of small, that's sort of nice, but you can also use a ballpoint pen. So once you've done everything in pencil, you're just going to go over it in a pen. And then once you've drawn over it in pen, you're just going to go ahead and you are going to erase any pencil lines that you had. So really quickly, I'm just going to try to show you what I'm working on here. Let's move the light back down, see if that helps out. So I'm just going to go back over my lines. So for example, here's part of Mothman's back. And I'm just going to draw it on there. And then once I'm done with that, I'll let the ink dry a little bit. So I usually wait a few minutes. And once you've drawn ink on top of everything on your page, you can go back through and you can erase your pencil lines. And the other thing you can do is, if you have a Sharpie and you feel like doing it, you can color in some parts of the thing completely. So for example, if I was looking at this picture and I was like, you know what would really make it pop is if I filled in the Mothman's mouth. You take your Sharpie and you can go ahead and color it all in. And I feel that by having some dark colors and some really dark spaces, it actually makes the rest of your drawing look a little bit nicer, right? So maybe once I'm done inking this, I'll color in the whole background black so that it looks like the Mothman is just appearing out of the night. And that would be kind of cool, right? So for each of your pages, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do a pencil drawing and pencil writing your words. You're going to go back over your lines with a pen, right? You're going to color in any spaces that you want all colored in. And then lastly, you're going to go over with an eraser and you're going to erase all your pencil lines. And by the end, you'll have a nice finished zine. And you can see on here what I mean. Sometimes I colored things in, right? And I have these big chunks of like black that's all colored in. And I think that that makes it a little bit more interesting to look at from a distance when some things are colored in, like this guy's t-shirt, and some things are not colored in, right? So that is pretty much how you make a zine. And I am really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Have a good week, Gabby.